Okay. I guess we'll go right to questions since we've had some time to talk and some with the shows and stuff like that. So we'll open up for questions right away.
Coach, when you look at Zach and you talk about the mistakes that he's been able to learn from, what are those that he hasn't repeated, and what are the ones that he has done again?
Well, I think he's a lot more decisive in his decision making. Whether it's the right decision or wrong decision, he's more decisive. I think he's doing what he has to be able to do to get out of the pocket a little bit better. Now, there's a difference. Now you're out of the pocket, and now just get rid of it. And now instead of get tackled or for a sack or now re-injure yourself or anything like that, put yourself at risk. I think accuracy, I think he's throwing some tremendous, and we can talk about, he's got 5 interceptions, he's got 8 touchdowns. True freshman's got 8 touchdowns with, I think we're 7 or 8 starters now on offense that are freshmen. And you start to look at, the ball he throws to Rashad Bateman in the end zone, the second touchdown's phenomenal. The fade throw's phenomenal. The deep balls he's throwing are phenomenal. Are there some that you sit there and go, that one got away from him? Yeah, why did it get away from him? Pressure in his face, had to make a back-footed throw. Those are the ones we got to get away from him, where he's just, this is the Big Ten. You're throwing off your back foot with somebody in your face and it's a 22, 25-yard throw. Those aren't the best. We've got to be able to find and feel the pocket better, step up, escape, and do those things. But he's being more decisive, that's what I can appreciate with him, and you want your quarterback to be decisive. Because now all of a sudden he knows what throw he can make and what throw he can't make, and that's what you want him to find out. But he's making some tremendous throws, some great reads. But again, he's on the other end of that. There's the other spectrum of that. And we want to do everything we can to swing it towards the more positive all the time and more consistent.
When you look at Bateman and Ottman Bell, the thing that really seems impressive is the way they go get 50-50 balls or over the middle. I know you teach them technique and route running, but what's the process for going after and catching a contested pass?
Well, Matt Simon, our wide receiver coach, does a great job teaching those guys. Wide receiver is kind of our forte. I think you're starting to see a development of a really special wide receiver unit, here at the University of Minnesota. Not just one guy, but a lot of guys. And that's something we wanted to create the day we walked in here. And we had to change a lot to be able to do that and bring in a lot of guys to be able to do that as well and develop some. But as you run into deep ball, it's all about body position. Everything starts with the release. Right, and then you're getting into the vertical part of that route. There's 3 parts to it. There's a release, there's the vertical extension part of that route, and then there's the finish. I think all guys are doing a tremendous job of keeping their shoulders vertical as long as they possibly can. They're doing a great job of pumping their inside arm and not just pressing and giving somebody else something to grab onto. We call it a meat grinder, where our inside arm has to continue to pump and continue to keep us strong. The speed that you're running at has to change, not the opening of your shoulders to do that. So that's very difficult. It's very difficult to master, but they're doing it. We needed to be able to extend the field last game. We're down 14-0 before you can sneeze. And next thing you know, okay, we got to throw the ball down the field. We need to create synthetically here some explosive plays without being able to get pressure on our quarterback or get sacked. So that's why you saw so many balls down the field. But they're doing a good job going up and over. There's 2 instances where there's 2 interceptions where they should be able to make that play. And then if they were standing here today, they'd say the same thing. That's not saying anything negative about our players. I expect them to make those plays. They expect themselves to make those plays. And when they're 50-50, they need to be more like 90-10. And that's how we look at 50-50 balls. And I understand that we're going to play against really good players, but they should only win 10% of the time if it's a 50-50 ball. So with all due respect, you're 50-50. We look at it as we keep talking, as our relationship grows. 90-10 is the way I look at it, and that's the expectation. And we're not there yet.
Have you noticed, do you see different defensive looks now in terms of the way with Tyler just not drawing, so much attention? Is it changing any because these guys are starting to produce the other 2?
I think I don't know necessarily if it's one receiver that changes coverages as much, right? If you have one receiver and you put him into the boundary all the time, you can cloud him. You can play cover 2 to that. You could take him out of the game. But every safety you take deep, you take out of the box. I think to be able to make it what we want it to be one day, you got to have an incredible run game, right? And that's what hurt us with Rodney going down and Shannon going down, was that part of that. Because now if you could think of those guys being in there as well as Muhammad and Bryce, and then the weapons on the outside. We don't have that. We're not living in the world of fantasies here of we could, we would, we should. We don't. But that's one thing that can draw more people into the box if they know they have to stop that running game. Now we got 2 freshmen starting on the offensive line. So again, it's one of those things that you guys kind of look at, and I think early on they could bracket tie, but it didn't really change the overall strategy of the defense to take the others away. I think now you're starting to see across the board, it's hard to just be able to just play cover 2 against one guy, and where you can move them around at different spots. But the run game is what really helps that. If we can establish our run game even more, the better we can have in our pass game. But when you're down 14-0 like that, that was hard to get back into.
When you look at your defense in a couple of years, when you have your guys in, what do you want the identity to be?
Well, first of all, it's a great question. They're all my guys now, right? Day one, with all due respect, I told everybody that I chose them. They didn't choose me. Right? These players did not choose me. I chose them. They're all my kids. They're all my players. They're all my sons. It's the way I look at it. It's how we run our family. Defensively, I thought in the game our front 7 played outstanding. When you hold Iowa under 3 yards a carry, right, and right around 100 yards, and they're 2 tight ends, they had pretty good games, but that wasn't why they won the football game overall. And you put the ball into Nate Stanley's hands and other wideouts, that's how they beat us. And so the back end, we've got to be a lot better. If you look at what happened a few years back and what was here, and that's a need for us in recruiting, 100%. That's why Terrell Smith's here. That's why he's playing as a true freshman. That's why Jordan Howden's here. That's why Benny Sapp's here. That's so on and so forth. But you can't just have 9 defensive backs you recruit because you have 10 other positions. You need to be able to fill that too. But we want to be able to do exactly what we're doing. We just want to do it better. We want to do it better tomorrow. We want to do it better at the game on Saturday. We want to do it a year from now, 2 years from now. You've got to be able to stop the run in this league, period. And then you've got to be able to play man coverage on the outside and be able to win one-on-one battles. As we talked about wide receivers, you got to be able to win the one-on-one battles. That's the defense I want. And that's the defense we're developing, is to be able to lock people down one-on-one and be able to put enough people in the box to stop the run, put a lot of people under duress at the quarterback position through blitzes, but also have the ability to sit back and cover 2 and get to somebody within a 4-man rush. And that's, if you asked about what I want, my dream, we're getting there.
How's Daniel Falele improved and become more assertive since he's been here?
Well, I don't even know if he's an assertive man. I guess if you tell him you're not going to move, I'm sure he's going to move you in the hallway. So I'm sure he's assertive. But I think the biggest growth he hasn't been the physical part, because he's just physically naturally strong. Now, he's only going to get stronger as he goes. It's the mental and emotional part. The one thing you don't want to play a lot of freshmen to begin with, because they're not ready mentally and emotionally, let alone physically in the Big Ten. So that's the reason why a lot of people don't play freshmen. Well, we have 33 on our 2 deep. But that's part of it. Get them mentally and emotionally ready as fast as possible to play. That's what this race to maturity has been about since January. When doing what you have to do becomes doing what you want to do. When they get here, they all want to do it. It's just over a course of time, these freshmen hit walls, and at different times they miss home, they get homesick, they have all these different issues. They have a girlfriend for the first or second or third time. They're open to a lot more scrutiny than they were before. They're looked at like they have to be able to play at a certain standard. Maybe they didn't expect that walking in. But Daniel's a guy that can handle a lot. I think back in March, April, I probably wouldn't have said he was ready yet. And as he's continued to go, every day Brian Callahan's got him more ready and more ready and more ready, and to a point where you're like, okay, I feel at this point he can play. And when you play young people, just like the NFL talks about quarterbacks all the time, and I think that's a little bit overhyped. If you play a quarterback early, you could ruin him, or you can play a quarterback early, he can be successful. You have him sit behind a Hall of Famer for 4 or 5 years, he's probably going to be better. Have the same system over and over, he's probably going to be better. But I think for us, you don't want to play him, but if you're put in a position where you have to, you still want to make sure he can make it mentally and emotionally. Rashad Bateman has no problem making this thing mentally and emotionally, or physically. He's not that strong yet, but I don't worry about him mentally and emotionally. He came here to do exactly what he's doing. So did Daniel. So did Curtis. So did Zach Anixted. So did Bryce Williams. So on and so forth. But and so did Terrell Smith. But those are the guys that you look at when you know you're going to have to be able to play freshmen. That's part of the evaluation process. Can this guy handle playing as a freshman? If you look at some of those freshmen and say, yeah, we need you to come in and play as a freshman, and they go, ooh, I'd like my son to be redshirted and play his junior season, then you might not want to come here. And that was part of the whole process. So, I thought he did pretty well when he was in there. He's got to get a lot better, but he's fully committed to making himself a really good football player.
PJ, they're second nationally in sacks. Does Shiano bring a lot of pressure, or is it just the front that gets home?
Yeah, I mean, where our defense really comes from is Shiano and Coach Frazier and Rob Smith and, all of us together at Rutgers at the time. And Greg's doing a little of that. He's not doing all of that anymore. Greg would love to be able to, just as I said, play man coverage, lock you down. They have two of the fastest corners in the country, fastest football players, period, at corner. So they can be able to lock you down on the outside, plus still get pressure with 4, let alone still have an under coverage or a rat down in there that can be able to do some things. So not only can they cover the outside, they can take away your screens. They can do a lot of that, and they make it very dangerous, and they can put pressure on you really quickly. So it's an enormous challenge for us. We know that. But we just have to keep getting better every single day at what we need to get better at.
Defensively, what are some of the most important variables to improving third down defense?
Well, you got to get off the field. Third down is, we were that was not good on third down at all. The 10 of 19. I mean, you get off half of those, and we could possibly win the football game. It's the details. It's the small details. It's the alignment. It's the depth. It's the ability to go set the edge. It's the ability to break foot, dry foot on the hip, and keep your eyes on the key. If you're going down the field with a guy, your eyes should be on his hip, not down the field like this, because you think it could be a deep ball. It's the small details that you really worry about as a coach when you're playing so many young kids. That's what you worry about. And you have to be okay when, you just can't overreact and pull somebody out there, because that's part of the expectation. You demand it so they don't do it, but sooner or later they're going to touch the stove, and you got to break. Remember, these guys played for another football team in high school last year, most of them, or they haven't played yet, or they're playing a different position. And, when you have that, they're still breaking some old habits and creating new habits, which then create new instincts. So it's a process. They're working really hard to get it done. I know that. And there were a lot of upset young men in that locker room at a very young age, very upset. Like they felt like they could have won the football game. And that's what you want to see from your team. You don't want to see, we always got next year. That's not what you want to see from a football team. And I've seen it before. This is not what this football team's about. They want to get better now, and they want to do all the little things right, which they want to do it. Are they doing them? That's what we got to get more consistent. But they want to do it, and that's half the battle, which I'm glad we're on that part.
What would a win over a ranked team do for your program?
Well, for us, just as we treat everything's the next step. It's the next right step to our program, and we've got to look at that. And in terms of it's one game. One game doesn't define your season, win or lose. But it's a wonderful environment for us to know, especially with this. This is a championship football team, consistently, traditionally, past, now, then. This is the Ohio State University, with all due respect. And I worked there, so I feel like I can say that because I know what it was like to work there. And when you're going to go play a champion, you got to know what one looks like. You got to know what one hits like, what they feel like, what they breathe like, how fast they play, how organized they are, the details. I'm not saying like our 11 guys. I just want to say, okay, they're going to snap the ball. I want everybody stop and watch. That's not what I'm saying. But they know what I mean when I say that. When you play somebody like that, that is where we want to ultimately get. And if you don't really get experience by seeing it, feeling it, hearing it, experiencing it, how can you get there? So that's the standard, and that's where we're continually working our way up to. And I'm not comparing us to them at all. What I'm doing is giving them a great compliment and making sure our educational experience, no matter what we do, no matter who we play, fits in line with where we are with our football program. And so for us, obviously, winning football games is why you come here, is why you play the game. But you have to get better, and you have to be able to embrace everything that comes your way on the path of that happening.
What are the other clips besides Miracle on Ice are you showing them?
A lot. I'll have a lot more data for you if you want to ask that later in the week, because all that's coming. Majority of it's coming tomorrow. They haven't seen anything yet, so I mean that in the terms of way like they haven't seen anything yet. Like the big stuff comes tomorrow, but again, they have to see those things. I mean, because I said this in my radio show today. I said, think of a world. Coach Mel could say things to his team that nobody necessarily could verify. Or they could sit there and say, hey, fact check on that at the other side that was wrong. I'm using it as an example. I'm not saying he did this. But I'm saying that with media on the outside, social media, constant 24-hour coverage of different things, things being said, there's all these things put in these young people's heads. And then they start to, if you don't have a culture that continues to bring them back to center, bring them back to center, bring them back to center, bring all that noise out there. Yeah, bring it in here. Let's bring it back to center. Let's use this and continue to get you on your straight line again. Because I'm not one of those coaches take away phones or take away your social media. They need that for their growth. That's how they connect. But it's also teaching moments. It's that cultural way of teaching those lifetime lessons. And part of that's what we're doing. We're showing all those upsets as best we possibly can. Because if we had a chance to win, you all would call that an upset. So they got to know what the UP-SET actually looks like, means, what they're talking about, and see what that looks like, and so that's why we do it. We just educate them in terms of what that looks like. And if that person can do it, that person can do it. That's why you play a game. That's why you go out there and play. It doesn't promise you anything just because you watch a bunch of people do it. It doesn't promise you anything, but it gives you a perspective. And that's what I think coaches continue to do when you have these young people. Is our job is to give them perspective in every area of their life. You can't live it for them, but you can give them perspective of how to handle different situations. And I think that's a job of a coach.
You talked about the running game, and you may have talked about this last week, but Shannon Brooks, do you have a set plan for him yet, or is that something that's just going to be a surprise? You show up and he plays. Surprise to us.
We have a plan. I don't know if the plan's going to go according to plan, but we have a plan. I still have to wait for him to be 100% cleared, and then there's a certain protocol you go through. He's getting closer. That's the best. That's what I keep hearing. He's getting closer, and I know he's working his tail end off. We're going to do a lot of things to get him even closer as we continue to go through the next few days, few weeks. But I know he's biting at the bit. He was biting at the bit in August. If you had allowed him to play in August, he would have. Obviously, he was not ready, but that's his mentality. But one player does not define you, But he's really excited to get back on the field. The plan is at some point to play 4, though. I will not break his red shirt. I've told him that. I told our team that. I think that's very public. And no matter what happens, I will not do that. He deserves to come back next year. And so, when he's ready to play and when I get told that he can play, then we'll start looking at when we want to do that.
Carter Coughlin's the only defensive lineman with a sack here through 5 games. How do you change that in the remaining 7?
Well, I think part of our scheme, we're doing everything we can to get him freed up. One-on-one on a tackle the best we possibly can. But what we have to be able to do is get way more pressure from other people. Our system's designed, you got to do your job, but when we get on 3rd down, we got to sit and pass rush. Anybody can create a sack. We're that close. Nobody cares when you're this close. What we talked about at the end of the game, we're that close. Now, some people are saying we're this close. Some people say we're from here to, L.A. close. But we're closer, and we just got to fill that gap. Again, attention to detail, fundamentals, technique. Those are the things that get you that much closer, and that's what we have to be able to do.
What do you remember most about your time working at Ohio State?
I remember a lot, but I won't tell you a lot. I was only there about 7 months. I got cut from the 49ers, and then I got a call because I was, wasn't going to play anymore, and got a call immediately that somebody didn't get into school, and they had a GA job open. I was like, that sounds good. So went there and had a tremendous run. I got a chance to see, and this is a great compliment, I got a chance to see Jim Tressel go 12-0, and every game we won, I was like, man, this coaching thing's easy. I mean, playing was so hard. Coaching, this is a breeze. Every game we win by 30. This ain't that hard. Just do what Jim does, and I'm sure they'll do that when I become a head coach. And then I remember we got into the national championship game, and you all saw how that went. Teddy Ginn scores the opening touchdown on a kickoff return, breaks his foot. Entire game plan's built around Teddy Ginn. And by the middle of the second quarter, we go for it on 4th down. Jim Tressel says into the headset, which, again, I'm sitting there thinking he's the closest thing to a higher power you can get. And he says, boys, if we don't get this 4th down, it's over. And at that moment, I found out that anybody can get beat at any point, whether you're looked at as a terrific coach, whether you look at it as a bad coach, whether you're looked at anywhere in between, whether you got great players, whether they got worse players, whether you got worse players and they've got better players. At any point, that can shift. And I think that was the most humbling part of second most humbling part of my coaching career was just watching that. It was a tremendous lesson. If we would have won that national championship game, I don't know how that would have even affected me as I continued to go through my coaching career. But I got to see the greatest parts of him, and I also got to see that he's human, and he's like every other coach. And I think that was really good for me to see. And Jim Tress will tell you he's a teacher, not only a president of a university now or a head football coach. He was a teacher before all of that. Very similar to me, he's a teacher. And so if he could find a way to teach all the people in his organization a lesson, that's what he was always doing, and that's what I took out of it. You got it. Row the boat, Sky. Go Gophers. Thanks, everybody.